A quick note before we start. The history of album art isn't chronological, it's thematic. Some ideas arrive before their time, some overlap. I'm mostly following the ideas, not the sequence, in a 4-part series that covers the rise and demise of a genre of art over a century. It's taken us about 4 months to do this story justice, so I hope you'll like it and follow along. It starts, like a lot of stories do, with a moment that changed everything. Here we go. On Christmas Eve 1906 in Brant Rock, Massachusetts, an inventor named Reginald Fessenden did something nobody had ever done before. He broadcast music over radio waves. A violin played "O Holy Night." It doesn't sound dramatic now, but think about what happened. For the first time in human history, people could hear music without the musician or the instrument, without saying anything at all. Sound had been separated from sight, but we are wired to locate what we hear with our eyes. That's not a metaphor, it's neurology. When the sound arrives without a visible source, the brain engages for action. Early radio listeners thought it was spooky. Voices appeared in living rooms without faces or music without musicians. It may have felt weird, but when radio took music everywhere, it would also change our relationship to music. Think about this. Before radio and albums, most people could make music, everyone could sing. Not professionally, not perfectly, but in every home across class and culture, someone could play something, a piano, a fiddle. Music was a thing we did, not something we heard and was distant from. Radio and albums changed that. It seems like when music was performed for us, we had less reason to perform it ourselves. But we're going to come back to that. For the next 100 years, almost everything we think of as music culture was a response, a way of making music visible again. And that visual culture, covers, posters, sleeves, music videos, merch, will grow into what I think some of the most interesting art of the 20th century. Hi everyone, I'm Richard Williamson, I'm an artist, and I think my love of art might have started with album art. As you'll see in this series, I think we can argue that album art kind of reinvented celebrity, impacted politics, and influenced how we think about identity, about intimacy, about who we imagine ourselves to be. And it all did that in the margins of a product, on packaging, before we threw that packaging in the bin. But we're going to come back to all that. For now, let's go back for a second, because at first, records were sold in plain paper sleeves, brown or gray. A circular cutout right in the middle showed the center label, and that was it. Then in 1939, Columbia Records hired a 23-year-old graphic designer fresh out of Parsons. His name was Alex Steinweiss, and he was baffled. Here was music, this emotional, expressive thing, wrapped like stationery. His proposal was simple: let's give records covers that belong to the music inside them. I guess there was loose precedent. Sheet music had illustrated covers. You bought the image, then you learned the song. Jazz posters shouted, "Come see me." Vaudevillian bills had a visual language. But none of those images stayed with the music after the performance was over. So Steinweis kind of creates a different visual relationship with music. His first design for a collection of Rodgers and Hart songs was a Broadway theater marquee. Not a description of the music, but an experience of it. Well, sales rose immediately, and Columbia noticed. So within a year, Steinweis was art director, and illustrated sleeves were being rolled out across the catalog. He explored how abstraction and typography and color could map out emotional territory. Classical designs, restrained and balanced. Jazz releases, loose and rhythmic. The canvas was flexible, but the principle wasn't. The image was the music. For La Conga, he painted a giant pair of hands on a drum. For Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, a piano under a spotlight. His signature typeface became so ubiquitous, it was known as the Steinweis scrawl. And for the first time, albums could be displayed upright like books. So album art became a storefront, and record shops became galleries. Walking around them, it's hard to imagine now, but it felt sacred. Selecting an album was like buying art. Another new concept, physically owning music. That was new. So Capitol Records notices all this, and with Nat King Cole's The King Cole Trio in 1945, leaned in with illustration and typography hinting at the regal sound of the album. It made history, one of the very first #1s on the newly invented Billboard charts, bringing the album cover to millions of eyes in an age before television could carry cultural influence into people's homes. Then in 1948, the LP arrived, which was on vinyl, which was lighter and more fragile than shellac. So Steinweis solved it by designing a more durable, folded cardboard sleeve that was both protective and printable on both sides. It was a technical fix that changed everything because for the first time, recorded music had a stable, generous visual service that was permanently attached to it because you had to protect your album, right? It became a musical canvas. And this canvas did more than decorate. It gave listeners something to kind of sit with while the music played, something to hold. Blue Note Records, driven by Francis Wolff's candid photography and the graphic design of Reed Mills, paired stark black and white photography with bold modern typography, expressive shorthand for the music spirit. RCA Victor hired Jim Flora, whose covers showed just how far illustration could go in making music visible. Rhythm could be drawn, energy could be exaggerated, sound could be turned into shape and color. Alongside Flora, David Stone Martin showed how restraint could carry weight. His loose gestural line drawings, often little more than ink and suggestion, captured intimacy rather than spectacle. Ben Shahn, already established as a fine artist, brought a sense of conscience to folk and protest records. His covers signaled values and social intent before a lyric was even heard. Around 1959, designer Neil Fujita was pushing abstraction further. Charles Mingus's Mingus visually mapped the adventurous music inside, as did Dave Brubeck's Time Out, early proof that album art could shape perception as much as the music itself. In 1956, RCA released Elvis Presley. The cover shows Elvis mid-performance. It's restless, physical, and sexy. Rock and roll was about to impact culture globally, much like the internet would 50 years later. If Elvis showed how photography could give music force, then Ella and Louis showed what it could give back. Released in 1956 on Verve, just Ella, Fitzgerald, and Louis Armstrong, seated together, relaxed, smiling, so casually famous their names don't even appear on the cover. Their faces were enough. This was the moment the album art began to reinvent celebrity. Photography didn't just show musicians, it let audiences recognize them, trust them, and feel close to them. Their faces on sleeves, posters, magazines created familiarity at scale. Artists stopped being sounds and became people you kind of felt you knew. In 1959, album art got its own Grammy category, Best Album Cover. And photography became central, with major photographers acting as collaborators. Patti Smith Horses, Robert Mapplethorpe. Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, Annie Leibovitz. Nirvana's Nevermind, Kirk Weddle. These covers shaped how the music was seen and believed. But the most radical visual experiments were happening elsewhere, which is where we're going in episode 2. Next time, posters, psychedelia, and the moment the canvas started thinking for itself. I hope you'll follow along so you don't miss it. And let me know in the comments, what's your favorite album or album art that you think deserves to be a part of this series? I'm going to try to do about one a month, so we'll see how we get along. Thanks for watching.